Detroit Lions make another move to bolster their secondary, and today the Lions are reportedly signing cornerback Avonte Maddox. So let's get right into it. So the Lions go out and add a versatile piece in the back end in Avonte Maddox, a 28-year-old slot cornerback slash safety slash a guy that's also played wide cornerback and brings special teams value to the table, but unfortunately has dealt with a lot of injuries in the past. And this goes back a while, different surgeries. I mean, 2023, you can look at the fact that he had a torn pec. He's had foot injuries. He missed time last season. He's been banged up a lot, but most recently spending his time with the Philadelphia Eagles in that slot cornerback role. When they initially lost him due to injury, it was a scramble to try to find anybody that could fit that position for them. However, he's also played in multiple different positions. And while this isn't the full breakdown video, of course, we'll get to that at some point, I am intrigued by this signing because, of course, at 5'9", 185 pounds, he's built to play slot corner, and that's what he's done a majority of the time. And he's had some success there, but he's also had some real negatives to that as well. I think this is an interesting idea to come in and play safety for the Lions. I mean, there's going to be flexibility there, which the Lions love to have. Of course, a guy that can literally play everywhere and will give run support, especially at slot, because if he hangs in well, then that allows Amik Robertson specifically to play more out wide. And then, of course, you have Rakestraw that can compete with him in that position. So it makes a ton of sense to bring in a player like this. Yesterday, talking about Rocky Sin, he's not really a slot cornerback. He isn't that type of player. So for the Lions, I thought coming in, they needed cornerback depth, wide slash slot. And now they've done this with Avonte Maddox on paper, but I do wonder a little bit. I think that's probably where he'll end up playing, but I do wonder a little bit if they'll try to also play him at safety, especially because the Lions don't really have much depth there as of now, and that I think he's very capable of playing in that role. But we'll talk about what I've seen so far from Avonte Maddox, because we saw this player in person a couple years ago when the Lions played the Philadelphia Eagles, and I thought he was pretty successful in that game against us, so it makes sense why the Lions would be interested. Still a player, again, under 30 years old, 28 years old right now, coming off the season at just over 300 snaps. He allowed 14 receptions on 26 targets, so just over 50% completion percentage this past year, and only a 78 pass rating allowed, which is fantastic. The year before, less snaps, just over 100, allowed 11 receptions on 14 targets. Now, athletically speaking, while he's not the biggest cornerback, he's definitely a very good athlete. 37-inch vertical when he was coming out, a 6'5 cone drill. Also posted a 4.39 40-yard time. Now, I don't feel like that 40 always shows up when you watch him on the field, but testing-wise, he tested fantastically. A lot of technical knocks within his game, and the thought of developing and really bringing out some of that athleticism that was shown in college and some of the competitor, and also a guy that's very capable at the catch point and trying to find more consistency. And I still feel like it's been a little bit of an up and down ride. And of course, injuries don't help there either. But I can also understand why the Lions would be excited to get Avonte Maddox with Deshae Townsend, who did a fantastic job with our defensive backs this past season. So I get that a ton. He's also a very high football intelligence type of player from what I've seen. His communication is great. He works really well through motion, pre-snap, kind of adjusting on the fly. And then in terms of his zone drops, the way that he overlaps coverage, the way that he creates proper depth, the way that he finds routes kind of underneath, he's fantastic in those spots as well. So from just a football intelligence perspective, adding that kind of veteran piece to your defensive back room, whether that's in the slot or at safety or really anywhere that you need him, that's super valuable. And I think they're getting that here with Avonte Maddox. So you'll see right away that he's able to play really low within his pedal, really low within his pad level. You'll see the short area quickness, which shows up at the top of the route specifically, and also some of the looseness within his hips, which can open up that ability to transition. We talked about kind of that zone communication. I really liked him in cover 3, which Philadelphia did a lot this past season. But keep in mind, he was often the flat defender in underneath zone coverage, which is also a role that if you're playing safety, if you're in a cover 3 sky, for example, you'll also get that assignment. So it's something the Lions could consider, that he's comfortable in that role already and that he has the ability to play that position. But the quick hips, the quick feet help a ton of these spots. I love the depth that he plays with. He kind of settles in, takes away routes, has a really good feeling for what's happening behind him and where he needs to get on the field. He passes off and kind of breaks through depth in terms of different route concepts. Here's the mesh. Let me get first level, second level, third level. Passes things off quickly, and he's an active communicator as the play is going on. So I love that in zone coverage. And he's very twitchy to find the ball at the catch point. When he's in phase with the receiver, he is pretty feisty at the catch point. He's super twitchy within the lower body, and he can be impactful at the catch point. And the length shows up as an issue. If the ball's put away from him, he just can't get on the football. But he's pretty feisty at the catch point. He's physical. He's going to make it difficult to come down with the ball. And I think this really can show up like in the red zone where we saw that, okay, length can be an issue, but it's tough to get the ball to your body when you have to deal with him riding your hip. And you'll see that more the closer you get to the end zone. And we saw that this past even when he was outside. The idea of him playing safety for me stems from this. I think there's plenty of inconsistencies when you have him kind of working slot coverage specifically. but I like him at safety where he's able to match up more consistently with tight ends. Obviously, there's natural issues with that just in terms of size alone, but I think he's shown from what I've seen so far the ability to deal with some physicality at the top of the route due to his footwork, due to how low he plays, and some of the physicality that he pushes back with. So on tight ends, while he's outsized, I think you see obviously very easy over the top quickness. He seems to play a lot faster there because he can recover. He can run down tight ends, breaking over the middle of the field specifically. So the speed shows up better. The short area twitch for his transitions also show up better as he's not matched with slot receivers constantly. He's dealing more with tight ends in this spot. That shows up a little bit better as well. He's also an attacker against the run. He's always been a very effective run defender, but also an effective blitzer as well. That's willing to stick his nose in, settle in the box, which unfortunately all the injuries happen, takes on blocks. He's an attacker that likes to settle in and play the run, but you also see it as a blitzer as well, which again can be valuable both from the slot position and from the safety alignment as well, especially if you use him as a blitzer. So from just a build and kind of how the player plays mentality-wise, it makes a ton of sense the Lions were interested in him there. Recovery footwork as well, which is very beneficial when he falls behind. He has some false movement, has to recover in some of the maybe the level 1 or level 2 routes specifically. You'll see some of that short area quickness to kind of get himself back, get back to balance, recover when he's a little bit off or misplaced, and then he can has the kind of the hip flant transitions as well, like we saw yesterday, to get back into the play, say if he oversets, but about the control at the catch point. So for me, this is a player that's going to be competitive against the run, gets a lot of pass breakups, and of course has a ton of flexibility defensively. That all makes a ton of sense. I like the idea early. Now, my opinion may change on this as, hey, have him as a safety. He's played free safety, strong safety. I like him as a strong safety / slot cornerback as well. That's a value that he adds. Let him play on special teams, but I think he'd be great safety depth. And he's also, because of that slot background, can kind of step in as your third safety on pass downs and then settle into the slot in those spots. So I like the idea of putting him there. I've seen this guy line as almost like an off-ball linebacker playing the middle of the field like a linebacker would. So he's been everywhere all over the field, but I kind of like him as a safety because I look at him as, from what I've seen so far, the most consistent success is either going to be probably pressing guys off the line if you have him in the slot, let him get physical, let him try to stay in phase throughout the rep, let him be feisty, let him use his movement skills, or you put him at safety and then he can work a lot more variety of coverage assignments and deal with tight ends a little bit better in terms of some of the movement because some of the knocks are very clear cut. For one, the ability to stay connected in off-man coverage seems to be a little bit of an issue. You don't see as much of the burst to the ball. He tends to give a lot of space in those spots. He doesn't do a great job, I think, of squeezing routes. At the top of the route, I think there's a lack of patience as well. He feels very herky-jerky. It doesn't feel as fluid. He seems to be impatient, kind of gets himself in a spot where he declares too early or he sets poorly or he doesn't anticipate a route break, so he's not getting a jump on the ball, and he's just giving up space. His 40 time in terms of recovery speed doesn't tend to show up. He could be a little bit late to transition and break on the ball, just anticipating where a route is going. See some like kind of stalling at the top of the route, specifically when he's working some of that off-man coverage as well, and he'll just lose some connection at the top of the route. You even see this when working through some of the press situations as well. It's kind of tracing routes, so lose a little bit of connection there. So his press footwork could probably be a little bit impatient as well, just from the little bit that I've seen there specifically. You'll get some false movement in zone coverage, which will limit the plays he'll make on the ball. Even if he's in a good spot, he reads through it. He may get some false movement, what kind of delays him, slows him down a little bit, especially when you're working some of those level 1 route concepts where things are happening a lot faster. But overall, I think this makes a ton of sense. This is the kind of player that you would expect the Lions to be interested. And for them, I think it adds leadership. It adds a player that's very physical against run, will step in. Of course, you hate the injury history, but he has flexibility to literally play everywhere. So he'll probably come in as a piece like that. A guy that's going to play everywhere, be competition. We need him in slot, we'll throw him there. If we want him out wide, we can throw him there. If we need him at safety, we'll throw him there. I think that's going to be the idea here with Avonte Maddox, as he's played a lot of different spots. And the hope is with Deshae Townsend that maybe this is the defensive backs coach that will allow him to kind of dial in some of that technique and just be a little bit more consistent, because the movement skills, the physicality, the toughness, all of that is there. I just early kind of like him at safety, but we'll see if the Lions try that. That's just where I like him early. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, though. Avonte Maddox, welcome to Detroit. Thank you, Brad, for watching, and I'm out.